The World Health Organization is being accused of a conflict of interest. Plus, the latest battlefront between China and Taiwan. That and more on this week's China News Headlines. Welcome to China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. Be sure to like this video, and remember, YouTube is secretly unsubscribing people from the show, so make sure you're still subscribed. Here are this week's China News Headlines. The World Health Organization is under scrutiny. It's over their recent investigation in Wuhan, China. They sent a team to Wuhan to investigate the origin of the coronavirus, which is hard to do more than a year later, but hey, the Chinese Communist Party wouldn't let them in until now, for some reason. The WHO probe was a propaganda win for the Chinese Communist Party. The investigation team praised Chinese officials for their coronavirus response. And they said it was very unlikely the coronavirus leaked from a lab. Why, that's what the Chinese Communist Party has been saying all along. Another Communist Party talking point the WHO backed up. They said it was possible the coronavirus spread to humans through shipments of frozen food. Of course, Chinese state-run media had a field day with all these glowing comments, while other countries were a bit more critical. That's when the WHO came out and tried to walk back their comments. Slightly. In an interview with Science magazine, the WHO mission chief talked about how politics was always in the room. He hedged on the lab leak hypothesis, saying that the WHO hadn't definitely ruled it out. And he clarified that while it's possible the coronavirus is being transmitted through frozen food now, it was not a possible route of introduction to China in 2019. And when the reporter asked whether they had just given a PR win to Chinese authorities, the mission chief defended the WHO team, saying they're not naive about politics. I don't think the problem is that the WHO is too naive. The problem is that they know all too well how to operate under the Chinese Communist Party. For example, the WHO experts had to be approved by Beijing before they went. And some are now saying the WHO has a conflict of interest. U.S. Senator Marsha Blackburn wrote this letter to President Biden, saying concerns have been raised regarding the manner in which World Health Organization investigators were chosen to study the outbreak, and some of the conflicts of interest that exist in those investigators. One of those experts Beijing approved is Dr. Peter Daszak. We've talked about him before. Since the beginning of the pandemic, Daszak's been saying there's no way the coronavirus came from a Chinese lab. Turns out, he's been a long-time collaborator with the lead doctor of that Chinese lab. Another person on the WHO's investigation team, Marianne Koopmans. Here's her page on the Provincial Center for Disease Control and Prevention in southern China's Guangdong province, where she's listed as a consultant. And funny enough, she's also been praising China's response to COVID since the beginning. But in addition to those Beijing-approved foreign experts, the investigation team also included 17 Chinese experts. And Jamie Metzel, who is a World Health Organization advisor, criticized the WHO for, well, not actually doing an investigation.
Well, the investigation itself was very short. It was 2 weeks of quarantine and 2 weeks of meetings, but the actual investigation was done by Chinese authorities. And so the WHO investigators were basically receiving reports from the Chinese officials.
And why would Chinese officials lie to the WHO? So what should be done about all these conflicts of interest? Well, in an open letter, more than 24 international scientists are calling for a new investigation into the origins of the coronavirus outbreak. In the letter, they say the joint team did not have the mandate, the independence, or the necessary accesses to carry out a full and unrestricted investigation. And since the WHO is limited in what it can do, these experts say the international community needs an investigation carried out by a truly independent team with no unresolved conflicts of interest and no control by any specific agenda or country. Yeah, that's definitely not going to happen. But this letter does show that the rest of the world isn't really buying what the Communist Party and the WHO are selling. And that includes the U.S. State Department spokesman Ned Price. He says the jury is still out on the WHO report. And Biden's national security advisor, Jake Sullivan, said, "We have deep concerns about the way in which the early findings of the COVID-19 investigation were communicated, and questions about the process used to reach them." But after the Biden administration started questioning the investigation, WHO expert Peter Daszak tweeted, "Please, don't rely too much on U.S. intel, especially any intel about himself." In response to all of this negative backlash, the WHO has decided to take responsibility by scrapping their interim report on the investigation. Because if they released an interim report, then everyone would get mad at them again. Don't worry, they will release a full report later. And coming up after the break, Biden's new trade negotiator wants to get tough on China. But maybe, not super tough. Welcome back. The Senate Finance Committee has voted to approve Biden's pick for top U.S. trade negotiator, the U.S. Trade Representative. Her name is Katherine Tai. Tai had worked for the U.S. Trade Representative's office during the Obama administration, including as chief counsel for China trade enforcement. And she actually won 2 cases against China at the World Trade Organization.
I previously served as America's chief enforcer against China's unfair trade practices. I know firsthand how critically important it is that we have a strategic and coherent plan for holding China accountable to its promises and effectively competing with its model of state-directed economics.
Many have been wondering what exactly Biden's China plan is. And Tai spelled it out.
We must remember how to walk, chew gum, and play chess at the same time.
Sounds easy. But while Tai agrees China is a rival, she also said that we have to cooperate with the Chinese Communist Party.
China is simultaneously a rival, a trade partner, and an outsized player whose cooperation we'll also need to address certain global challenges.
Which is a stance that the Biden administration has pretty consistently taken on China now. The real question is, what will Biden be willing to do to get the Chinese Communist Party's cooperation? The Chinese Communist Party is responding to allegations of sexual assault on Uighur Muslims by attacking the Uighur women making those claims. One way Chinese officials attacked the women was by making public their medical and fertility records. But that's not all. One Xinjiang official said of one of the women, "Everyone knows about her inferior character. She's lazy and likes comfort. Her private life is chaotic. Her neighbors say that she committed adultery while in China." The Chinese Communist Party. Their motto, "Believe women are lying whores." And now it's time once again for my unfortunate catchphrase. Hong Kong police have arrested more democracy activists.
47 Hong Kong dissidents were charged on February the 28th with conspiracy to commit subversion in the largest single clampdown on the city's pro-democracy opposition under a Beijing-imposed national security law.
At this point, every prominent Hong Kong activist is either in jail or exile. And if arresting huge numbers of Hong Kongers for no good reason doesn't make everyone else there love the motherland, I don't know what will. But sadly, Lithuania doesn't love the motherland. They're considering leaving China's 17+1 forum and getting closer to Taiwan. This would be a huge blow to China's plans for Central and Eastern Europe. If you want to know more about the 17+1 and how China is using it to infiltrate Europe, check out our recent episode, China's Big Europe Failure. And speaking of Taiwan, China has announced a ban on Taiwanese pineapple imports. It's not about politics, obviously. It was purely a matter of biosecurity. I mean, imagine if Taiwan accidentally exported a deadly microbe that harmed people in other countries. In response to China's ban, the people of Taiwan bought the entire year's worth of pineapple exports in just 4 days. I always loved those Taiwanese pineapple cakes. Now I love them even more since they're sticking it to the CCP. And now, it's time for me to answer a question from a viewer who supports China Uncensored on the crowdfunding website Patreon. Go to patreon.com/China Uncensored to learn more. Charlie WB Rook asks, Chris, are cute and cuddly Chinese dwarf hamsters actually communist insurgents looking to infiltrate our hearts and subvert our freedoms with enslavement to our pets? It's even more evil than panda diplomacy because anyone can go out and buy one, unlike pandas. Oh my gosh, Charlie, you may be onto something. Pandas have been China's diplomatic weapon of choice for a long time. Now I don't see what the big deal is with pandas. Disgusting. But one problem with panda diplomacy is that they are, well, giant bears. You're right that Chinese dwarf hamsters are small and portable and could be in everyone's home, slowly brainwashing them into loving the Chinese Communist Party. The problem is that while they're cute, they're not as cute as pandas to some people. Which means there's only one solution. The Chinese Communist Party is going to miniaturize pandas. Yeah, they're going to genetically engineer giant pandas to become tiny pandas. And then they're going to use these tiny pandas to cuddle everyone into submission. What's that, Shelley? No, we cannot get a tiny panda for the studio. We're doomed. Thanks for your question, Charlie. And thank you for watching China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.